Hello everybody, it's Hater. Welcome back to another Destiny 2 build video, and I can't believe I'm gonna be saying this, but finally, after years and years of not being good, the Axion bolt grenade for Voidwalker Warlocks are finally gonna be meta again. And in today's build video, we're gonna be covering a build that will not only abuse just how good they are, but allow them to give us super energy, grenade energy, melee energy, rift energy, and stacks of charged with light. So if you guys enjoy the build, then leave a like on the video, leave a comment down in the comment section, anything that you want to see me cover in the future, and subscribe to the channel so you'll be up to date for whenever a new build video goes out. But something that has been out for quite a long time, coming on a month now, is Destiny 2 Update 3.4.0. This was released just under a month ago on December 7th. And the main purpose of this update was to talk about all of the current cooldown changes that are going to be coming to the game, or technically now are currently active. But something that a lot of people, even including myself, did was skim over the humongous amount of grenade changes near the bottom of the patch, especially a certain one talking about the Axion bolt grenades. Because what they do now is that they deal increased damage versus PvE combatants by 15%, their bolt tracking search radius is increased by 33%, they have an increased bolt movement speed by 10%, and their bolt travel distance is increased by 15%. This on paper doesn't really sound like a whole lot. Yeah, they deal more damage, yeah, they track further, and yeah, they move faster. But in actuality, these things are an absolute menace when they're paired with Top Tree Nova Bomb. More specifically, its ability, Chaos Accelerant, to overcharge the grenade, making it better. Basically making it go from 3 Axion bolts that will seek enemies out when you throw it near them, to 4 of them that will seek out enemies and deal more damage to them. For perspective, let's compare the Vortex Grenade to this. Because whenever we overcharge the Vortex Grenade, we're going to usually throw it at a pack of mobs 1 to 3 and then just kill them all. Something that the Axion bolt does that is better is that it will seek out multiple enemies in different packs. In the long run, meaning they're more efficient at killing adds than a Vortex Grenade. The other thing that I think that Axion bolts do better overall is taking advantage of Bloom. Bloom allows all of our abilities, our melee, our grenade, and our super, to cause enemies to explode whenever they die to them. So whenever we have 4 seekers looking for enemies in different mob packs, they're also causing those enemies to explode, thus killing more enemies with the ability overall. For that reason alone is why this is broken. So to take advantage of that, we're going to be abusing the exotic helmet Nezarec Sin and its perk Abyssal Extractors, which will give ability energy to our grenade, our melee, our rift, and our super every time we get a kill with anything that is void. Then to make it better, we can pair 2 Ashes to Asset mods in our helmet to now make the Axion bolts give us a lot of super energy after they kill something. For the rest of the build, now that we've established a lot of super energy for it, we're still missing those key mods that will allow us to get that grenade back even faster and also survive in the content we bring it in. So to fill those gaps, we're going to be using an elemental well build that will give us stacks of charge with light. And to start things off, the first mod we'll be using is Explosive Well Maker, so that all of our explosive kills from Bloom will create a solar elemental well. Now this elemental well is very important because we're going to be using it to gain a lot of grenade energy back every time we pick it up. And the mod that's going to allow us to do that is Well of Ordnance, causing every solar elemental well that we pick up to give us an extra 15% of our grenade energy back. Then to pair with this and make it better, we're going to use Bountiful Wells, so that now every time we get an explosive kill with Explosive Well Maker, it'll create 2 solar elemental wells instead of 1. Thus in the long run, giving us 30% of our grenade back every time we pick both of them up. Now with Explosive Well Maker, Well of Ordnance, and Bountiful Wells covering the grenade energy part of the build, let's talk about the other part of the build that's going to be keeping us alive. And the first mod that's going to be doing that is Protective Light, which is by far the most overpowered and useful mod in the entire game. If you don't have this mod, then I highly recommend taking your time every single day to check HaterTheOne in the tower so that you can pick it up off of her inventory because it rotates out daily. What Protective Light does that is so absolutely broken is that whenever your shields break, it consumes all current stacks of Charged with Light that you have and give you a 4x damage resistance buff for 10 seconds so you can stay alive. To then get those stacks of Charged with Light we need to make Protective Light work, we're going to be using the mod Elemental Charge so that now our solar elemental wells will also provide a stack of Charged with Light every time we pick one up, thus creating a loop of get kills with our grenade or our super, get explosive well maker to proc, get stacks of Charged with Light, get our grenade energy back, get abyssal extractors going, and survive. As far as the build goes, guys, that's the build, or for your armor at least. And earlier, I talked about how Nezarec Sin can work off of any void kill that we get. So let's move over to my Warlock and talk about my current loadout with some options that I can recommend for you guys. At the same time, I'll also break down my armor and tell you where mods are going to be going. So to start things off, in my kinetic slot, I'm using Arbalest, the exotic linear fusion rifle, so that I can ignore any needs for any kind of shield in the game. Because as I stated before, we're going to be using Nezarec Sin to get all of our ability energy back, and Arbalest is going to be fitting that role perfectly to a T because of its perk compounding force. Basically meaning that it will ignore every single barrier type in the entire game, and then it will also apply disruption break to whatever shield we decide to break with it. Next up, over at the energy slot, this is going to be important because whatever you decide to run in this slot is mostly preference. The only thing that matters is that the weapon has to be void. But the weapon that I choose to use in this slot is an Imperial Needle because it is my best void bow. On it, I have Killing Wind and Frenzy. Personally, I would have preferred Archer's Tempo over Killing Wind, but this, as I stated before, is the best one that I have. Moving over to the heavy slot, I'm using a Threaded Needle with Vorpal Weapon and Autoloading Holster because it acts as one of my main DPS weapons and it can unstop champions. Something else that I could run in this slot is the Zephyr Sword, but I would also have to swap out my Threaded Needle to something like a Grid Skipper. Overall, guys, I'm just using my loadout as an example of what yours could be. All you need to keep in mind is that you need weapons that are void. That is really it. Anything that you're comfortable with will work. This is just what I find comfortable to me. Over at the armor, starting off with the Nezarec Sin, I have mine as solar. I'm using the Bountiful Wells at the end with both Ashes to Assets next to it. Next up, over at my arms, I also have these as solar, and I'm using Elemental Charge at the end because it's cost efficient, and champion mods that I can trade out for whatever content I decide to bring this into. Could be Unstoppable Pulse Rifle, could be Unstoppable Sidearm, in this case Overload Bow, it could even be Overload Sword. It all depends on what I decide to run. Next up, over at my chest piece, funny enough, this is also solar, and I'm using Explosive Wellmaker at the end of it with 2 damage resist mods next to it to trade out depending on what situation I'm bringing the build into. Over at my boots, I have these as void, and specifically for my boots, I'm using Artifice boots from the master version of the Grasp of Avarice dungeon. The only thing that's going to change here is that extra slot at the end for artifact mods. For you guys, whenever you make this build, you're just going to swap out the Absolution I have next to Protective Light for whatever ammo scav you decide to use. But as you can see, I'm using Protective Light at the end of it with my Artifact, Linear Fusion Rifle, and Fusion Rifle Scavenger in Absolution and better already, so that Orbs of Power will give me energy to all of my abilities and start immediately healing me. And finally, over at my Bond, I also have this as solar, and I'm using Well of Ordnance at the end of it because it only costs 1, and Particle Deconstruction for the Arbalest and Threaded Needle in my heavy slot. If I decide to swap over to my Zephyr Sword though, I'll take Particle Deconstruction off and put on Passive Guard with a Focusing Lens. This just allows me to abuse the freeze factor on the Zephyr Sword. You don't have to do this, but it is still something that I like to run. And that, my friends, is going to be the build video for today. I'm going to be trying something a little different in this video. Down in the description, there's going to be a dim loadout for my build. If you happen to be using the dim add-on or website, you can click on this link and immediately optimize your loadout for my build. So if you guys are interested in that, I will be now adding that on every single build video that I do from this point onward. But either way, guys, that's going to be it. I hope you all enjoyed the build. I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.